because, I'm mostly spending time on Instagram because I have to gather people together from Instagram and mobilize them through Instagram, which is really easy to, the young generation are there. But Twitter is just for journalists, politicians, and that.
Yes.
And so mostly I spend my time on Instagram and Facebook and Telegram, WhatsApp, being in touch with people inside Iran. But my husband checking my Twitter, and he said that you have to answer this because this is really important. They always follow you. They always support you. And I just, I said, oh, yeah, I know this guy. So that was the story behind it.
Yeah, I'm always hanging around. I'm always kind of, because I'm kind of new to this, but I've been really trying to get involved in a lot of the secular rights movements and, trying to gather all the people into have these conversations through podcasts and things like that. So as to introduce new people to an audience, because a lot of people kind of interview the same 5 people everywhere, I've noticed.
Yeah, which I hate that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So it's a little risky to like present new people because maybe they don't draw in so much crowd. But I think if that's why I try to go through books and things like that and find new activists and everything.
Well, good luck. It's a good idea, and I'm really, admiring individual who, you're not working for any media. You're just working for yourself, yeah?
Yeah, totally independent, yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That is actually, I always tell on my own show, encouraging people to be their own media, to be their own storyteller, to be, their own television, actually. So that is why, actually, I don't think you follow my work on my Persian broadcasting, my program on Voice of America TV. It's a platform, actually. I invite ordinary people, not even, just totally ordinary people, to be their own media. I teach them how to film themselves, how to, I make a instructional video to take them step by step to be their own storytellers and film themselves, actually to be their own documentary maker. And every week I make mini documentary about, people inside Iran by using their own materials, which is amazing. Some of them went viral and changed their life.
I read about that in your book. I just finished it. So it's a wonderful book, by the way, but we're going to talk about that. So I want to introduce you first and give like a little short summary of who you are. So I'm speaking with Masih Alinejad. And Masih has worked as a journalist in Iran, covering stories about the parliament. She currently works as a presenter at Voice of America, the Persian service, and is a contributing editor for Iran Wire. In 2015, she was awarded the Women's Rights Award by the UN Watch. And on social media, she has a very popular campaign under the hashtag #MyStealthyFreedom and White Wednesdays. And most recently, she published a book called The Wind in My Hair, My Fight for Freedom in Modern Iran. And I got the book. I just finished reading the book, and I very much wanted to speak with Masih. And I have to tell you, I was kind of shocked when I read the book because I thought the book was going to be kind of about your background in Iran. And then quickly we'll get into just the campaign on Facebook about My Stealthy Freedom. But there's a lot before that. You had a lot of history before that, so I can't recommend the book enough. Like you have a lot of experience. Just the story, which is the big chunk of the middle of the book, is your work as a journalist, working covering parliamentary. I mean, I really should present you as Iran's biggest troublemaker.
Yeah, that's actually true. I have a long journey. I had a long journey from my small village, my tiny village, to Brooklyn. And some people might think my main focus is just about compulsory hijab and that's all, but that's not true. This is just, for me, it's just the first step towards full equality. Compulsory hijab is just the most visible symbol of oppression against women.
Before we get into all that, could you give like a short summary yourself for the people who don't know you?
Sure, yeah. My name is Masih Alinejad. I'm an Iranian journalist, a campaigner for women's rights, and an author. I published actually 4 books in Iran, and this is my first book, The Wind in My Hair, being published in English by Little Brown. And mostly, my main focus right now is about women's rights. But as you said, the government of Iran called me a troublemaker. They called me the agent of MI6, the agent of CIA. Actually, the agent of Donald Trump right now, they call me. They don't even know that I'm stuck here in America because of travel ban. Yeah, that's all. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, all this is explained in much more depth, and I can't recommend it enough in your book. It's a lengthy book, but I really feel like the structure of it leads to understanding your human rights campaign today, all those little interactions you had. But before going into that, I want to also get a little bit of history about Iran, because I think this is fairly obvious for me and you that we know a lot about Iran in recent history. But for people who don't know, could you explain how the radical change after the revolution in Iran changed Islam to be more conservative, more religious?
Let me tell you that this book, The Wind is in My Hair, actually give you a picture of 4 decades in Iran, which my grandmother, my mother, and me, and the new generation, my son, and these women of my campaign. So 4, generation actually giving you a picture of how Iran was before the revolution, and how people had the hope that after the revolution they're going to achieve, and what happened to us, the generation of the children of the revolution, and what the new generation is doing right now to get rid of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So I have to say that when I asked my grandmother, my mother, my father, who supported the revolution, that what was the reason that actually they got involved in that revolution, they were having the hope to, gain better opportunity for their life. I grew up in a really poor family, so they were looking for a better life, job, food, money. And my father still is a street peddler and a farmer, and working in a farm. So my mom, the same, growing vegetable and selling them in the city. And my grandfather was just, going and not, it's not easy for me to say that, but begging for food in the street, and going to every individual's house, and asking for food. And so that was their reason to get involved in the revolution: food, better life. And nothing happened to them. When I see right now, they're still suffering from poverty. And when I became a journalist, then I asked those reformists that I've been working with them very close in reformist newspaper inside Iran. So I interviewed the former reformist president of Iran, Mohammad Khatami. I was a parliamentary journalist, and working for so many different reformist newspapers. And they were actually saying, one of the well-known reformists, Mustafa Taizadeh, was saying that we had this revolution, we overthrew the regime just because we were looking for greater political freedom. And he himself actually admitted that we had already all the social freedom. Women had the right to choose what they wanted to wear before the revolution. Women were allowed to enter stadiums. Women were allowed to participate in, any kind of sports. And we had so many female singers in Iran. And as Mustafa Taizadeh, one of the well-known reformists, said that they got involved in the revolution because they were looking for political freedom, for freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And so they didn't gain any better political freedom, but instead we lost all the social freedom that we already had. And my generation, we didn't have any, we didn't take part in the revolution. Actually, we are the one, as I said in my book, experiencing and being witness that how this revolution became a revolution against women. This is, this is the way that I can explain it to you. None of the promises has been delivered so far. And if even you go to those politicians who were involved in the revolution, they will admit that.
What promises are you referring to there?
Yeah, like, political freedom and the Ayatollah Khomeini. Let's just focus about the women that I said this, revolution became a revolution against women. Let's start from that. Before the revolution, the main promise from Ayatollah and all those politicians who were involved in the revolution was just, karamat insani. So yeah, they were saying like women are going to be more respected after in Islamic society and after the Islamic the revolution. And they were actually the headline of the newspaper was like, we are not going to force women to be to wear hijab. Hijab is not to be compulsory. And they were actually, quoting Ayatollah Khomeini and all his allies were actually promising that, women are going to be free to choose what they want to wear. So that was one of the promise, which, after the revolution, only a few months ago, women just experienced that no, there's something is going to change, and there was a actually massive revolution, women's revolution demonstration after the revolution. It was women. The first group who took to the street to protest against the revolution was women, and they were actually asking, that why we are forced to wear hijab because of the fatwa from Ayatollah Khomeini. So and it happened actually 2 years after the revolution, and they oppressed that demonstration. And after that, we never had the chance to take to the streets again and asking for our rights back. And, as I told you, all of the female singers, they just left Iran. And this is 21st century, and now we're still fighting for our basic rights. Just yesterday, that was the first time after the revolution women got the chance to enter a stadium. And this is 21st century, we're still talking about it.
First time in 37 years, I read.
Yeah. So women were just, and actually from the beginning, they were not allowed to. But because of their resistance, the government didn't have, any they had to accept that because of the resistance, because of the civil disobedience, because women were like sitting on the floor and saying that we are not going to, leave the street. So you see, I have to say that after the revolution, when women took to the street, if all those people who were involved in the revolution would support them, then we shouldn't fight. We shouldn't have right now fight against fight for our basic rights, for a small piece of cloth. So that is why I always say that this revolution became a revolution against women. Some people might say that no, look, after the revolution, women get the chance to go to school, to go to university, and look, now more than 60% of university being occupied by women. That is true. We achieved all of these victories by our own efforts. The Islamic Republic of Iran didn't give us anything. Instead, for 40 years, the Islamic Republic actually took our body hostage, and they wrote their own ideology in our own bodies, in our bodies. And we were the one actually had to carry the most visible symbol of Islamic Republic on our bodies. So that is why when I always talk about compulsory hijab, I have to mention that we're not talking about, a small piece of cloth. We're actually talking about the most visible symbol of oppression against women.
I have to ask you, when every time the conversation comes up about the hijab, whether it's me, you, or anyone else, it always comes back to the concept of choice. And in the West, they will always throw, well, isn't it just a woman's choice to do so? Now, I feel that there's two aspects that can be divided up into more places, but basically two things. One is that there is a legal choice, and a second that there's a social choice. And I know that mostly you focus on the legal choice in Iran, but it really gave me the impression that even if you were to obtain the choice, the freedom to wear the hijab, to get rid of compulsory hijab, it seems that a lot of other aspects to hijab that go beyond the law even.
That's true. Actually, I started my campaign by just publishing a picture of myself, and talking about my personal story. So you see, there are so many stories behind this small piece of cloth. My story actually, shows you that me growing up in a traditional family and being forced to wear hijab even inside the house, I started my own revolution from my family's kitchen. And so through my experience, I learned that this is not just the government. Social pressure, emotional pressure, and when I say emotional pressure, maybe you don't have any clue about that, I didn't want to break my father's heart. I didn't want to break my mother's heart. I didn't want to lose my community. When you're forced to wear hijab from the age of 7, you think this is just a small piece of cloth. It's like part of your body. It's like your identity. So for me, it was not easy to take it off overnight and leave all those, emotional band behind me and forget about my mother, forget about my father. It was not easy because when you wear it every day, then you think that this is something really strong, link between you and your community, and if you take it off, then you're going to lose your own community, which I did. My father stopped talking to me. But the most important part of taking my hijab off was actually the personal story, as I said. But I cannot say that this is all coming from the law, compulsory hijab laws, because this is the way actually my father being educated by the government. So he's a simple farmer, working in the farm. He's an amazing father for me, but he loves me. But I cannot say that he was brainwashed to take me to heaven by force by the government of Iran. He was watching the TV every day and learning that how to punish me, how humiliate me, how putting pressure on me. And I remember from the beginning when I was just a teenager, so I used to create my own stealthy moment of freedom, taking off my chador, my black long chador, and I was totally covered up by headscarf and long mantu, but I didn't want to wear hijab. So I was just walking back from secondary school to my house, and I saw my father by accident in the street. And oh my God, I still cannot talk about that day. So he spat on me, and he was like saying, "You brought shame in our family." So you don't understand that how difficult it is for a woman to lose the family and community. And when I left Iran and I was living outside Iran, it took me 2 years to replace my black hat, which was my my version of hijab. So it was not easy because I didn't want to lose my family again. I didn't want to lose my community. So and I was everywhere unveiled except my media appearance were with my black hat. So you see, there was a long process for even me, which I call myself a brave woman. I call myself that, I started my own revolution from my own kitchen, but still I wanted to have my father. So my father found out, okay, so she's out of control. She's unveiled everywhere. He just wanted me to not bring shame on the family and being unveiled on my media appearance. I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. So this is not a big deal for me. I'm fighting against, so many different things, and there are so many bigger problems. So, and I found that even me being brainwashed, and I think fighting for political freedom is important than fighting for our own rights. Then when I published a picture of myself being unveiled in London with this caption, anytime when I run in a free country and I feel the wind in my hair, it just reminds me of the time when my hair was like a hostage in the hands of Iranian government. And I wrote this caption. That's it. I received a lot of comments from women saying, envying at my freedom from compulsory hijab. So soon after, I published another picture of myself, which was taken inside Iran, driving unveiled. And I wrote another caption that, you know, I'm a woman and I know how to bypass the authority. In Iran, I used to take off my headscarf when police was not around, when my father was not around, when the teacher, you know, when I was on my own. And I am sure that there are a huge number of you having the same, you know, picture. And I asked them whether they want to share their stealthy freedom with me or not. Because, you know, freedom is freedom. Freedom cannot come with any adjective. But the government of Iran made our freedom to be stealthy, to happen in secret. So, but when you talk about it, then it's not a secret. So that time when I asked women that whether they want to share their moment of stealthy freedom, I got bombarded by photos and videos from women inside Iran. So because they had the same, you know, pressure, social pressure, family pressure, and the pressure from the law and society. So they started to share their moment of freedom. And I found, okay, now this is the time that I have to learn from this ordinary women. I am a journalist, and I always think that, no, I want to fight for bigger problems, and I want to fight against the corruption. I can even wear my hijab and go to media and talk about the corruption in the politics. No, if I don't have the control of my head, then I won't be able to get the control of what's going on inside my head. If I cannot solve a small problem about my own body, then I won't be able to fight for, you know, bigger achievement. Then I started to launch a campaign, and I thought this is the time that we women have to take our own bodies back from the government.
I've been following this protest now, and it's been going on for quite a few years. And as you say, I'm very surprised how long it has endured, and it speaks a lot to how much this matters to women. A few years ago, there was crackdowns by the law. Then there was social attacks where men on motorbikes would throw acid in the faces of some of these women, and then it even exploded again in the last few months as the revolution on the women of Revolution Street, where this one street called Revolution Street, but in Persian, where women were holding up hijabs on a stick, and many have been arrested. So there are many real life consequences to this protest. And they still go on for years, and they still do it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. When I started my Stealthy Freedom, it was like, it was just an online movement. Women were sharing. Actually, the real act was happening in the street, but it was just, you know, picture and video of individual women walking unveiled. But then when I launched White Wednesdays campaign, honestly, I didn't expect that women gonna do, you know, such a brave act it's just a revolutionary act and sending me videos. It was women walking in a crowd and busy streets in Tehran, taking off her white headscarf and inviting actually other people to join her. These were the videos that I have been receiving for 1 year, you know, through White Wednesdays hashtag. And then one Wednesday, I received another video from Vida Mowahed, which I didn't actually know her name. I didn't know who she is. She didn't send me the video. I just received it from a man, and I published that on my social media. It went viral, and she became actually the hero of all women who are fighting against compulsory hijab. Just 1 week, 1 day after Vida Mowahed, when she put her headscarf on a stick, that we had Iran protests. Huge protest against the government. People started to first it was about the corruption, the economic, and the workers haven't been paid their salary for 6 or 8 months. So they took to the street to protest for economic situation, for a better opportunity, for food, for water. But then it became the Iran protest became, just against the government. People were chanting death to dictator. People were chanting death to Ayatollah Khamenei. They were actually chanting, we want all the clerics to be gone. And so I thought, this time now people are going to forget Vida Mowahed. So I just created a hashtag called دختر خیابان انقلاب کجاست. In English means, where is she, the girl of Revolution Street. So, and then one of the women from White Wednesday called Shaparak Shajarizadeh, she actually put the headscarf on a stick, she filmed herself, and she invited other women to do exactly what the first girl of Revolution Street did, because that was the way that we could find who she is and support her. You won't believe me, I was like shocked that how men joining us in second week and third week, we were like, I was just receiving video from men and women putting headscarf on a stick. And in third week, there was the second woman went on the same platform as Vida Mowahed said, went and protested against compulsory hijab. This is how women, how women started their own revolution inside Iran. The government arrested 29 hijab protesters, but guess what happened? They became more, stronger, and they became more determined to fight against compulsory hijab. I'm going to just give you one example and then leave it to you if you have any question. There was the woman who got arrested, Shaparak Shajarizadeh, actually. She was interrogated for hours and hours. She got arrested twice, one for putting a headscarf on a stick, and then arrested for just, putting the headscarf around her neck. So she was the main, activist of White Wednesday. And she was interrogated. She was beaten up inside the detention center. I felt guilty that I'm here. I published her video, and now she's in prison. As soon as she got freed on bail, she sent a picture, and she said that I'm proud of myself, I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of all women in Iran. Just publish my picture with white headscarf again around my neck. So you see, this is fearless. And I want to say another woman, I still get goosebumps. Shima Babai, another woman who joined White Wednesday's campaign, when she got arrested because she was only 23-year-old, I was crying. I felt guilty that she sent her video to me, and now I'm safe here. So she got arrested. She got beaten up in front of, the detention center. And I was like, what I'm going to do now? And the whole night I was crying. But the day after, I received the video from her husband, and the video was actually it was Shima in front of the court taking off her white headscarf and saying that they arrested me for joining White Wednesday's campaign, but here I am saying that by arresting me, by threatening me, you cannot keep me silent, and I say no to compulsory hijab louder. So these are the Rosa Parks of Iran, These are the women actually showing the rest of the world how it means to resist. They're putting themselves in danger. They're putting their lives, actually they're risking their lives, but they're still fighting and they never give up.
Quite a few times in your book towards the end, you talked about the feeling of wanting to give up. From various reasons. One reason is the danger these women are putting themselves in. Another is a feeling of guilt of being in the West. But I've spoken with a lot of activists, and I think a lot of them, at some point, to run a campaign as you're doing, have to be in the West and be an outlet for these other women. And I think I think they know that to a degree.
Yeah, but for me, because all my life I've been fighting for small thing, like for a lot of things that maybe some people take it for granted, but I had to fight. And when I sit in the West, I feel guilty a lot that I had to be there, right there on the main battleground when people are fighting for their rights. Why I have to be here in the West? But the thing is, again, I want to, because I'm in touch with women inside Iran every day. I publish their videos, and I'm giving them a platform. But the thing is, still, when you're a fighter, you want to be in the main, battleground. You don't want to be kicked out from your own country. When I was 19-year-old, I got into prison just because of, getting involved in student activities and spreading pamphlets against the government. But I remember that time I was nobody. I was just a student from a small town, and I had no voice. None of the media inside Iran wrote about us. It was my father, my mother, who were like thinking that I brought shame in the family, so they didn't want to support me. Except my mom did the little thing, so just coming to the court. But we didn't have anyone to support us because we were unknown fighters. So from that time, my dream became like, one day I want to be a journalist and give voice to those people who are like me, coming from, from a small town, a small village. They are unknown, fighters, unknown activists, and they don't have any chance to be heard. That actually, helped me to just keep going. And another thing was when Shima Babai, one of the women of White Wednesdays, when she got freed, she actually wrote on her Instagram that she wrote that I was interrogated for hours and hours. My interrogator told me that you have to confess that you're working for Masih Alinejad and this is your crime. So you know what she said? She wrote on her Instagram that I replied to my interrogator that I am not working for Masih. This is Masih is working for me because I don't have any voice inside Iran. So you see, these are the women actually giving me the hope. Just not, I look at them and I keep going.
So I'm constantly told when I bring up the issue of hijab as a non-Muslim, a person outside a Muslim country, or even just as a man, a lot of people just, well, this is a woman's issue, you should just stay out of it. I find that a bit odd since the hijab was created by men and enforced by men on women. So it's kind of odd to be told that men therefore should have no opinion on it. But you've also put a lot of focus on the West and
yes.
and how
yes.
and that's more towards the end of your book, where you start pressuring a lot of visiting government officials that they need to talk about it with the Iranian government. Now that's counterintuitive to a lot of people in the West in general, who think that there should be a certain isolationist ideology towards not getting involved at all. But you're working very hard to get
them involved.
Yeah. So how should people respond in my case, or a Westerner talking about this? How can we get involved as men, as Westerners? What's the right way to get involved in that way?
First of all, compulsory hijab is not an internal matter, because I often get this argument that, so you inviting the Western people to interfere in such internal matter? It's wrong, because the Islamic Republic of Iran actually forced all women around the world, when they want to visit my beautiful country, to wear hijab. So it's about all women. It's about the female athletes, who wants to go to Iran. They are going to be forced to wear hijab. It's about the female politicians. They have to be, fully covered. Otherwise, they will be kicked out from the airport. It's about all tourists who want to visit Iran. They have to wear it. Otherwise, again, they will be kicked out from the airport of, my country. So it's about all of us. It's a global issue. As far as the government of Iran forcing all non-Iranians, non-Muslim people to wear hijab, we cannot say that this is an internal matter and let's Iranian women deal with it. No, it's about all of us, and we have to stick together. And some people says that, this is a country law. So you're inviting the female politician to break the country law? But this is wrong. As I always say, and I wrote in my book, that when burkini ban happened in France, we never said that, okay, this is a law. Or when the executive order about travel ban happened, I myself stood up against travel ban, and I took to the street and protest against travel ban, because I strongly believe that doesn't affect the politicians, that doesn't affect the oppressors. It only affects the people. And I never said that, okay, this is not my issue. This is not the other people. This is not even the people inside Iran. They never said that, this is an issue in America. And about burkini ban, the same. But when it comes to compulsory hijab and Islamic Republic of Iran, I really don't understand why people keep silent in the West and saying that, let's Iranian people deal with it within the society. And some people in the West, they might say that we don't want to, but when we go to Iran, we wear this hijab out of respect to your culture. Honestly, this is an insult to us because compulsory hijab has never been part of our culture. Before the revolution, as I said, we had the right to choose what we wanted to wear. And how you can call a discriminatory law a cultural issue? Because girls from the age of 7 are forced to wear it, and women get beaten up in the street just because of having inappropriate hijab. Then you call this one like a cultural issue, and you say that I wear this just because I want to respect the culture. This is wrong. So to me, I think some of the people in the West, they don't really know what's going on in Iran, and that is why they don't want to get involved. And that's why I always, try to educate them about what's going on in Iran, how people putting themselves in danger. But sometimes I think some people mix the politics with human rights, and for their own agenda, they don't want to touch the issue. I tried a lot to get the Democrat liberals outside Iran involved in this issue, and asking them that when we were all united to condemn the burkini ban and travel ban, then why you keep silent? This is hypocrisy. You have to join our campaign as well. So they were silent, and I didn't understand why. But still, I'm not hopeless, and I'm doing my best to make the rest of the world understand that when we talk about women's rights, we talk about human rights. And when we talk about compulsory hijab, we're talking about a discriminatory law. You cannot go to my country and legitimize the law, which people in Iran putting themselves and fighting against the same discriminatory law. So I'm going to give you another example that when the women of the Girls of Revolution Street, Shaparak Shajarizadeh, actually, the same day when she got arrested in Iran, there were 3 female politicians from Netherlands. They were in Iran and they obeyed compulsory hijab law. They didn't challenge it. They kept silent. And it breaks my heart when I see that, you're in power. Nobody can, arrest you, but you totally keep silent. That is the way actually you empowering the Islamic Republic of Iran to put more pressure on its women. I interviewed one of the Friday prayer and on the phone actually, and I asked him about compulsory hijab. You know what he said? He said that, look, even Catherine Ashton, Federico Mogherini, the High Representative of European Union, when they come to Iran, they respect our culture. Who are you? How you dare to challenge, the hijab laws? So you see, they're using actually the female politicians who go to my country and obey compulsory hijab laws to put pressure on us and keep us silent. That is why I think, this is important, that you shouldn't ignore those people who are fighting against the discriminatory law inside Iran.
You tell a very interesting story there. I forget which politician you were talking to because you've interviewed so many, but at some point you asked them about the burkini ban that was in a small province in France, and they were very against it. And they said, well, we're against what the French are doing because those women should have the choice to wear hijab if they want. And then you would come back, but wait, we don't have the choice in Iran. And then I was very shocked at their reply. It's like, well, Iran is an Islamic country, but they are a secular country. So a secular country, it should be a choice, but an Islamic country, it is the norm. So they're holding a double standard there in their minds. They want the right. They think the choice should exist in France, but not in Iran. I hadn't heard that logic before. It was interesting to hear it.
It was interesting for you, but for me, it made me really mad. It made me really angry, because actually when I was in Iran, I was working on a book project, so I had to interview 7 high-profile politicians. So I interviewed three politicians, high-profile politicians, Shamir Rafsanjani, former president of Iran, Khatami, former president of Iran, and Karoubi, the former spokesman. They were all, I asked them same question, that if you travel to France and in the airport, they forced your wives to take off their headscarf, what are you going to do? They were all condemning that. No, they shouldn't do that. They have to respect, a Muslim woman. They shouldn't take off their headscarf. And then soon after, I asked my other question. So how about you forcing, the female politician from France and other Western country in the airport to cover themselves? So they were like, so this is a Muslim country and they have to respect our law. I said, but when you go to France, you ask them to remove all the alcohol beverages from any official dinner. So you ask them to respect the Islamic values. That is actually why I think that we have to stand up for our own values as well. The Western feminists, when they go to Iran, we, the women who do not believe in hijab, we live in Iran or outside Iran, anywhere, we have to stand up for our own values, because the government of Iran forcing and asking all the Western countries to respect Islamic values. So imagine the West come up with a law and forcing Iranian female politicians to take off their hijab. You think they're going to do that and they're going to say, okay, this is a law in the West, we have to respect it? Not at all. They will protest. So then why shouldn't we protest against, a discriminatory law? And when people say that, the female politicians, sometimes they say that we go to Iran, we're talking about political prisoners, we want to solve bigger problems, and then that is why we don't want to get involved in such a small issue. It makes me really mad, because that is a big lie as well. Before Iran deal, the High Representative of European Union, Catherine Ashton, when she went to Iran, her first condition was that I want to meet with the human rights activist, and she did. It was before Iran deal, but after the deal, when Federico Mogherini, the other representative from European Parliament, when she went to Iran, she totally ignored human rights activists. She never met with any of those women who got arrested for their activities for protesting against compulsory hijab or other rights. So for her, after the deal, human rights was just, buried under the deal, and she totally forgot about that. And it was not only her. Most of the female politicians after the deal, when they go to Iran, they never, talk about human rights issue. That actually, that is actually the double standard, because before the deal, that was actually one of the conditions. So you see, when they're mixing politics with human rights, then they cannot say that we are fighting for choice, or we care about women's rights in the West. But when it comes to Islamic Republic of Iran, we don't really care.
I think you're talking there about the politicians and their approach to these countries. I think you have another obstacle and impediment in front of you for your campaign, and that's many Muslims in the West, and they're actually campaigning to normalize hijab. And in your book, you describe how you went to the Women's March, but even in the Women's March, one of the founders of the Women's March is Linda Sarsour, a Palestinian American, and she's tweeted such things as, the hijab is a sign of self-respect and modesty. And she's also written, Sharia law is reasonable, and once you read into the details, it makes a lot of sense. And she has a lot more pro-hijab, pro-Sharia tweets and many things she says. And then there's all these other campaigns to normalize the hijab, such as making a hijab Barbie, fashion shows featuring the hijab, commercials with hijab fashion models. So I think your campaign is contradictory to what their objective is, and you're kind of fighting against them. And because they're nationals, and there's a lot more of them who speak English and are in the country, you seem to be at odds and in a tug of war for the attention of politicians. How do you deal with this?
It's not easy. Here in the West now, hijab is more trendy. And as I said in my book, a Barbie girl wears hijab can make news for CNN, but millions of Iranian young girls, 7-year-old girls who are, being forced to wear hijab cannot make any headline for CNN. I was actually invited by CNN Online to be in a debate with Linda Sarsour, and when I said that I'm fighting for freedom of choice. And that is the reason that I stood up for women, Muslim women in France when they were, forced to take off their burkini. And I stood up against travel ban in America as well. So that shows I am all for freedom of choice. And I support all the, Muslim minority in the West as well, while I'm fighting against compulsory hijab. So when Linda Sarsour was saying that, sister, I support your cause as well, I said, no, you cannot call yourself sister when you never supported Iranian women's fight against compulsory hijab. She said, yes, I did. And I said, I went to your Twitter and I checked all your, activities. You never mention about those women who get beaten up in Iran because of compulsory hijab. You never stood up for those women who are fighting against compulsory hijab. They get lashes, they get into prison, they get fined, and now you're saying that, I'm for freedom of choice. You can't say that in a debate to, use our cause to, actually showing that you're supporting freedom of choice when I see that you never said that. Actually, you're patronizing our fight as well by saying that those women who are fighting for their right to drive in Saudi Arabia, you were patronizing them. Or when you're supporting Sharia laws, you have to mention that millions of Iranian women are putting themselves in danger to fight against Sharia laws. And I myself, when I fight for freedom of choice, I cannot ignore those women who are being forced to take off their burkini in France. But give me one example that you did support the women inside Iran who get into prison. I don't see anything on your Twitter. So
can I add there? I checked that myself various times about Linda Sarsour's Twitter account, and very disappointingly, I also checked the official Women's March Twitter account also to see if they have supported women in Saudi Arabia or these Iranian campaigns for against compulsory hijab. They have not at all.
No, that breaks my heart. That breaks my heart because for me, doesn't matter if sometimes people attack me when I condemned burkini ban, when I took to the street and and I condemned travel ban. Maybe some people hates me, but I think I'm supporting the minority. But when it comes to my cause, I see these people keep silent. It breaks my heart. And I don't understand that how you can do that to your fellow women who are fighting in Iran, putting themselves in danger, and you totally ignore them. But I have to say that women in the World Summit, and there are so many actually liberals as well. They're supporting us. I don't want to, I want to appreciate those people who never care about the political agenda or, they care. They really care about supporting women. And some people in the West might say that if they talk about like white savior complex, if we talk about women in the Middle East, we're interfering in their fights. Let's them deal with it. I don't understand them, because when it comes to Islamic Republic of Iran actually doesn't let any chess players to enter Iran if they don't cover themselves. And one of the chess players from America, Nazi Pakidze, actually said that I won't go to Iran if you're forcing me to wear hijab. And I remember all these feminists actually inviting her and saying that, no, you have to come and, empower Iranian women. So you see, you're inviting her to come to Iran to empower Iranian women. That doesn't call white savior complex. But when we invite all the Western women, when they come to Iran, they have to challenge compulsory hijab, then you call this white savior complex. You see, this is double standard as well. For me, doesn't matter the color, the country, or the gender, nothing matters. When it comes about women's rights, you have to all stick together and support each other. But when I see the hypocrisy, sometimes the double standards in the West, I don't give hope. I don't give up, and I don't lose hope. But it just put more pressure on us.
How do you feel in those cases where the people who are, for example, protesting going to Iran and not wanting to put on the hijab there. And then I see all these other people saying, well, it's their culture and it would help you actually to do it because you're almost doing an embargo on their society and you should just submit to it. That you were doing worse by isolating them.
No, I have to say that we never ask people to isolate Iran. Never. This is the Islamic Republic of Iran actually isolating unveiled women. Let me tell you something. People might think that this is the chess players or the Western athletes boycotting Iran. That is wrong. This is the Islamic Republic of Iran actually boycotting the chess player who doesn't want to wear hijab. Why don't you see it that way? Look, if the West come up with a law saying that all the female athletes, they have to take off their hijab and participate in a tournament, what would you say? Those women who wear hijab, they would stand up for their rights and they would resist. So this is exactly what these chess players from India and from America, they're doing it. They stand up for their own dignity. They resist a discriminatory law, which I am 100% sure if any Western country want to force hijabi athletes to take off the hijab, they would do the same, and I support them. So I don't understand why, when it comes to Islamic Republic and compulsory hijab, they just are justifying this and saying this is the culture of Iran, which is not. You know, compulsion cannot be part of our culture, or you cannot even say that this is isolating Iranian women. Not at all. When Iranian women, fighting against a discriminatory law and you legitimizing that law, actually you helping the Islamic Republic of Iran to isolate that, freedom fighters inside Iran.
Do you think that this is mostly due to the Westerners' ignorance of what the hijab is? Because no one has a very good grasp on what the hijab really is, because it's being explained to them as by people, for example, like Linda Sarsour or Dalia Mugaher or a lot of other Western Muslims, as simply a religious symbol that improves their connection to God. But rarely did I hear in your book that the compulsion, the push for you to fix your hijab, to wear hijab, I very rarely heard religion spoke of. It was very much oriented around shaming you for your sexuality, shaming you for your appearance. Your modesty is based on how much you're showing. Even foreign diplomats who were there, I believe it was one of the ones from Sweden, was shocked when she wore a kind of loose hijab and kind of tight pants. That's the only thing in Iran they could talk about and not transcend to other issues. Do you think that it's just the Westerners' ignorance of what this is, and it's being explained to them by people who are misleading them?
I strongly believe that this is the main propaganda of Islamic Republic of Iran actually working very well outside Iran as well. We shouldn't ignore that because, while I was fighting against compulsory hijab, while there were people inside Iran putting themselves in danger to fight against compulsory hijab, there were some, some pro-government and some so-called moderate journalists outside Iran. They are Iranian, but claiming that, hijab is not a big matter in Iran. It's part of the culture in Iran. And they wrote an article on, New York Times and many other, newspapers to actually mislead the Western feminists and telling them that this is a small issue. This is part of the culture of Iran. And so, in my opinion, actually, we have to educate the Western feminists about this issue. That if they go to Iran and they legitimize the law, the discriminatory law, that's exactly what the government of Iran wants to do. So they're using this compulsory hijab tool to control the society through their own women. And I have to say that now the Western feminists who go to my country, they're totally helping the oppressors.
Can
I
you?
think I keep repeating myself now because here it's really hot and we don't have air conditioner here,
It's
and then
okay.
I got stuck
That's,
in the room.
that's okay. Can you talk about the encounters you've had since living in the United States with either Muslims who live there or non-Muslims when you talk about this issue? What aspects do you find most frustrating, that is harder, that's the hardest thing for them to understand?
Most difficult part of my campaign is I have to deal with people who are saying that you're causing Islamophobia by talking about compulsory hijab, by talking about, those women who getting beaten up by morality police inside Iran. That's really, frustrating for me because they never understand that I'm talking about a regime actually who has womenophobia. I just created that by myself. Like, they care about Islamophobia, but they don't know we have been living in a country that the government have the phobia of their own women. And because they don't have this experience that being patronized, being humiliated, being just pushed back because of our gender, and then they always want to keep us silent and saying that don't talk about this now. Donald Trump is around, Islamophobia, they might take advantage about your cause. That actually is the most difficult part of my campaign, because I always want to make it clear that these Sharia laws and discriminatory laws causing Islamophobia, not us fighting against restrictions, not us fighting against those oppressors who are putting pressure on women and beating them up. Let me tell you an example. I was actually the one created the hashtag "My camera is my weapon." So I asked women to use their camera and expose the violence. Guess what happened? Women started to stand up for their rights when they see people telling them or beating them in the street and warning them for their hijab. So they started to film that. And one of the video actually got like 7 million views. The video actually shows the brutality of morality police in the streets. And I got the criticized from some of the, so-called left feminists saying that, you're now showing the dark side of Iran to the rest of the world and you're causing Islamophobia. And I told myself that, so you think that these women who are fighting against Sharia laws or against Islamic restrictive laws, they are causing Islamophobia? Or the law itself, compulsory hijab law itself, causing Islamophobia? Women get beaten up if they dance in public. You get arrested. If you sing solo, then you get yourself into trouble. You're not allowed to participate in some kind of sports just because of your gender. So, and then you think these laws not causing Islamophobia, but we the women who are fighting against this backward law, we are causing Islamophobia. That is the most difficult part that I really don't understand. They want us to keep silent rather, helping us to remove these backward laws.
Doesn't it also, I imagine it does upset you, but it doesn't, don't you find it odd that when these feminists say that and they use the term Islamophobia, when they see that woman in that situation being beaten for not respecting the hijab or any kind of moral norm, why aren't they more worried about womanophobia or Iranianophobia? Why do they specify Iranian women by their religion? And when they say Islamophobia, what they're saying is, well, we don't want to make people fearful of Islam. But there's so much more to Iranians than their religion. But it's when they say that, what they're explicitly telling you, what they want to protect in that whole situation of a woman being beaten is the religion.
But I am a woman who grew up in Iran with all those Islamic laws. And I have the right to have the fear of all the Islamic laws. I don't understand why people want to keep me silent when I say that the Islamic laws actually count me as second-class citizen. From the age of 7, I had to carry a fake identity because of Islamic laws. I love, I love singing, but I cannot sing solo because of the Islamic laws. And I love to be my true self, but I have to hide my true self just because of the Islamic laws in Iran. So as a woman, I have to get permission from my husband to travel abroad because of the Islamic laws. I am not allowed to get a passport. Doesn't matter who you are. If you are the high profile politician or you're a high profile, athlete, you have to get permission from your husband to get a passport to travel abroad just because of the Islamic laws. So I am the one actually have the right to have the fear of Islamic laws. Why you want to keep me silent? I don't understand this. And that really upsets me when people never lived in an Islamic country and under Islamic laws, they telling me that, shh, you're causing Islamophobia. I grew up in a poor family. And I remember that anytime when I wanted to talk about my personal rights, I kept hearing, shh, this is not the right time. Because when you're poor, that means you have to think about, bread, money, food. Then I experienced, war, and 2 of my brothers, they got involved in the war between Iran and Iraq. Both of them got injured. In that time, I was, thinking about having a bicycle and having fun. Again, was not the right time. So many bigger problems. Your brothers are in war, and you're thinking about your personal freedom. You're having joy and being happy. We had revolution, mass executions in Iran. Again, was not the right time to talk about women's rights. We had sanction. People were suffering from sanction, from isolation. Again, the reformers was in power and saying, don't talk about women's rights. The Western government might take advantage. And now I'm in the West. Again, I'm hearing this time from the Western feminists saying, this is not the right time because Donald Trump is in power. He might take advantage of that. I don't care. I think anytime when you see that your right has been taken away from you, you have to talk about it. And that really upsets me when people never experienced war, never experienced poverty in their life, never experienced revolution, never experienced sanction, never experienced all the discriminatory laws in their life. They are telling me, this is not the right time. But I think if you really care about women's rights, then you have to come and join us and condemn anything which is happening in the name of Islam in Muslim countries. Otherwise, you really cannot, name yourself a true feminist.
Also, reading your book, there's so many examples where you were shamed for your sexuality, or they even made up lies about your sex life. So, yeah. I can see how throughout your story, hijab may not even be in the context of being a woman in Iran, might not even be the main thing, but it's so symbolic of that in general, women just are not owners of their own body. They're not owners of their own sexuality. And I think if you don't have ownership of your body, you really don't have anything. So you keep saying in the book, and I'm glad you repeat it. And I think it helps it sink in that you can talk about nuclear weapons, you can talk about international policy, but what larger issue is there than a person having ownership of their body? And women above all in these societies do not have ownership of their body. And it's absurd, and it's mind-boggling that feminists in the West today, despite how much importance they're giving to their own bodies and their own sexuality with the Me Too movement and all of this, that they just cannot see that. I think it's mostly ignorance, though.
No, I just don't want to lose hope. I still have hope. The liberals, Democrats, the left, they're gonna join us. They're gonna understand that, in 21st century, you shouldn't accept the government of Iran telling you what to wear and using the word, this is like the respect out of the culture, or using the term that you have to respect the country laws, using so many wrong, term to force you to respect a discriminatory law. This is wrong, and you have to stand up for your own dignity. And I'm sure that if they listen to those women who actually got into prison for fighting against compulsory hijab, then they never gonna ignore them. They never gonna ignore our cause.
So thank you, Masih Alinejad, for being on. She's the campaigner for My Stealthy Freedom, White Wednesdays. I will link her Twitter and Facebook, and everybody should follow her and her campaign. Please check out her book, The Wind in My Hair. It is a fantastic book, and it is one of the essential books to understand what is the hijab and why women in Iran are willing to go through so much fight, and even through to the point of even being arrested to fight against this issue. It's not a small issue. And Masih, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that The Wind in My Hair actually shows that if you're a woman from Middle East, especially Iran, you have to fight for every single right, and instead of victimizing yourself or being a victim, you have to be a victorious. You have to start your own revolution. And I really want to encourage other women through this book to understand that your personal freedom matters, is important. Never listen to the politicians or those people who say that this is not the right time to talk about women's rights. So I just want to encourage other people to understand that your personal story matters and important. We are not fighting against a small piece of cloth. We are fighting for our dignity. We are fighting for our identity. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. In your book, you mention a lot of personal heroes, and you're a personal hero of mine. Thank you so much again for being on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.